is here from TYT, and she's going to be live streaming from her page and from TYT, so if anybody wants to pick up and share on their individual piece. TYT Politics. On Facebook. Good morning, dear friends, colleagues, fellow progressives. My name is Christine Pellegrino. I'm a mother, an educator, a proud Bernie delegate to the DNC, and a progressive Democrat who is dedicated to advocate for a fully funded public schools while standing for the well-being of our students and teachers alike. But perhaps most importantly for our purposes here today, I am a great admirer of our special guest speaker, a woman who has refused to give so much as an inch in the monumental struggle we are now facing for the soul of our country. Randi Weingarten has fought for public education, the rights of teachers and students to give and receive a proper education, and ultimately for the very core principles of unionism, collective bargaining, and ultimately, and the instilling of personal dignity that comes with being able to learn and earn a living wage. For most of us, a living wage means more than just a dollar sign followed by a number. Instead, it's about feeding our families, sending our kids to a good school, saving for college, and even being able to take a family vacation from time to time. A living wage means that we can make ends meet and still save for a future for our kids and for ourselves. How many of us are capable of doing this without having to work 70 to 80 hours a week while our spouses do the same? How many of us have to do it alone as a single parent? Families today spend far more on healthcare and education than they had to even a generation ago. 2 generations ago, families could feel reasonably safe knowing that if they work hard enough, they could not only provide for each other, but also achieve more and be better off than their parents were. The generation before that, my grandparents' generation, which we refer to as the greatest generation, grew up in the Great Depression. They fought a war to make the world safe for democracy. They knew what it was like to have nothing, and so they created a society that offered retirement benefits to prevent our elderly from starving to death in their old age, and so Social Security was established. They rebuilt our nation by understanding that more money in and all in our pockets meant They rebuilt our nation by understanding that more money in all of our pockets meant in our greater economy, and so the minimum wage became a building block for our middle class. And ultimately, they understood that for a society to be just, it must be built on a foundation of knowledge and understanding. So public education became the cornerstone of our way of life. Yet we no longer live in a society that is favorable to these principles, favorable to the working class, allowing access and mobility to a stronger middle class. For over 30 years now, we have been forced to embrace an idea that if we help make the richest people and the biggest corporation make more money, then we could count on them to create jobs and create and build an economy that works for all of us. Let me ask this. How is that working out for us so far? These people in charge have stripped Wall Street of any constraints on acquisitiveness, greed, having allowed massive banking conglomerates to gamble with and lose our money, have removed any real barriers between the interest of money and the decisions of our politicians, and money is speech, corporations are people. Have taken away from you the right that your parents held so dear, the right to a better life for your children, and the perpetrators of this skewed system are still holding all of the cards. They and their intellectual heirs still sit in the halls of power. They still vote to protect the top 10%. They still try to convince you, soundbite by soundbite, that this is the best thing for you and your family. Instead of carefully constructing an economic environment that would foster mobility and allow people to save for a better future, this corrupt system with which we have been struck for over a generation now has built an economy that works for only a small percentage of us. They get the tax breaks and we get Betsy DeVos. There are literally millions of working class families in this country who are the very foundation of our towns, our cities, municipalities, the foundation that has been built over multiple generations so that our life for us could consist of more than just working our fingers to the bone. Hard work, yes, but we deserve to enjoy the compensations of our hard work. Compensations that allow us to spend time with family and loved ones, unhindered by the burdens of crushing debt and the fear of injury or illness laying us low. Corporations and the financial elite are concerned that if working people get paid a living wage, it will decrease their profitability. I am not worried about them. They seem to be doing just fine on their own. I am more interested in being able to provide for my own children's education so that I can make the choice, and I have made the choice not to sit on the sidelines while robber barons strip public education funding to the bone and redistribute that funding as profit to corporate shareholders. I am privileged to be here speaking to you today because it is my honor to introduce someone whose voice has become a light in the wilderness, one that shines bright and never falters, even after the devastating loss of 2016, which has left us stranded in an America we sometimes do not recognize anymore. She has not skipped a beat. She has not hesitated to forging ahead, to speaking for the working class, to rebuild the middle class, to introduce policies that make sense for you, policies that are bought and sold on the same market system that corporate shareholders, moneyed interest, and paid-for politicians are currently manipulating for their mutual benefit. She has inspired me to do my part in picking up her call to action. Thanks in no small part to her example, I have just declared my candidacy and received the nomination from the Working Families and Democratic parties for New York State Assembly in District 9, in my hometown of Long Island. And this will be decided on May 23rd. For me personally, without the example set by Randi Weingarten, concepts such as guardian, protector, advocate, fighter may have simply remained as abstract principles. But now, they have become a collective call to action, a call that, win or lose on May 23rd, I will never dismiss or ignore again. Even if for a half a second I thought that I could. So please, won't you stand up and welcome with me the President of the American Federation of Teachers, a fighter for the rights of working people, and a personal hero and inspiration to me. Ladies and gentlemen, Randi Weingarten.
Is a couple miles away from Nassau County, Long Island, but they can't hear you in Nassau. Will we elect Christine to the Assembly on May 23rd? You know we're gonna do I know there, can I walk around?
Like those.
I just said to Mindy, none of you are having a duty-free lunch, and my apologies. Oh, is that okay?
to get a little more slack.
Is that okay? Spaghetti. How many hours did we stay up for the question?
I think till 3 in the morning, maybe?
Yeah, like 2 nights.
I was out of Brazil, pulled out the alcohol. That was when you know it was a good party.
So, I'm delighted to be here. I was actually, the Cornell graduate students are deciding whether they're unionizing on Monday and Tuesday. It was a big day. And I went to the Cornell IR school and they elected a while ago to affiliate with the AFT. And so I really wanted to be with them. So my apologies for not being here at 11:40, but I was with them this morning and also yesterday with the organizing committee. And, you know, Christine just, I have my notes, but I think it's better if I kind of walk around. But not too close to that microphone or to that speaker. So I want to spend a few minutes. My topic is supposed to be what is going to happen in education under Betsy DeVos. So the answer to this, I'll do this very quickly. We will be fighting for as many minutes as she occupies that office, because she is, and then she is the, so I'll answer this in 3 minutes, and then I'll say the other stuff that I really want to say to you. She is the most anti-public education ideologue who has ever been nominated for that office, ever, ever, ever. Whether that office was established as the Department of Education over 40 or 50 or 60 years ago, or even when that office was part of HEW. There's not been, even Reagan didn't nominate somebody who was this both ill-equipped to do this job and this ideologically shows an ideological antipathy to anything that is public. And so you can, you know, there's a kind of like a I told you so now, because everything she does now just proves that point. And, you know, whether it is, and how many K-12 teachers in the room, private and public? Thank you for what you do. So, many of the parents in the room and the K-12 teachers in the room will know this new law called ESSA. It does stand for something, but I don't ever remember what it exactly stands for. But it is the replacement of No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top, which was No Child Left Behind on steroids, and also the replacement of the ESEA law, which was Lyndon Johnson's first foray into public education. And Johnson's view, you know, you could say a lot of things about Johnson in terms of really bad things about the Vietnam War. But on domestic policies, Johnson understood poverty of children, taught children in Texas who went to school barefooted and had nothing. And his view was, as part of the war on poverty, was how to ensure that there was equity from the federal government to level the playing field so we could get to what Christine just talked about, which is if public education is the great opportunity agent, the great equalizer, you can't just say it, you have to do something about it. The sense that we have had a testing fixation under No Child Left Behind and Race to the Top, as kind of amplified by what I now call Common Core testing, because it really wasn't what it was sold as. It became basically just testing. If you think about ESEA, Johnson's first foray in the federal ed law, the first 25 years of it, which was focused on equity, which was focused on people working together with the resources that children needed, focusing on their well-being and on instruction, like paraprofessionals, like lowering class size, like feeding programs. In those first 25 years, the achievement gap closed far, far, far more, significantly more. The achievement gap between kids who are white and kids who are black and brown than it ever did in the test and sanction 25 years thereafter. So, Betsy DeVos. A year ago, because of a lot of people's efforts all across the country, including in New York State, we actually changed Barack Obama's mind and moved him from, we never changed Marty's mind. And I would say that John King is still a work in progress. But we moved him from being about test and sanction and the market being the all-being in terms of education, to understanding that even his policies made things much worse. Because we never would have changed the federal law if he didn't work with us to change it. And a lot of us worked really hard to get it changed. And is it the be-all and the end-all? No. One of the worst things about the new law is that it actually gives states that don't want to do something different too much power to stay with the status quo. But one of the things, three of the things it does do is it moved control of education back to the states. It kept the funding formulas like IDEA and Title I, meaning the ones that deal with equity. It made the core principle making sure that people were talking to each other on a local basis. It forbade the federal government from requiring Common Core or any curriculum. It forbade the federal government from closing schools and requiring the closing of schools. And it forbade the federal government from making test scores the center or using test scores as the basis of evaluation. Now, why do I say that first? Because essentially, Betsy DeVos walks into the job having less power than any Secretary of Education ever before because of the stupidity that Arne Duncan did. And because she really is imprisoned in some ways by what we all did, and NYSET was a big part of, in terms of changing the federal law. I just say that, so when I say we have to fight her bad acts, but just know a lot of people did a lot of things last year to really make sure that she couldn't do really horrible things to kids. But what did she do initially? She tried to rewrite the law. And the most important thing in the new ESSA law is to say that people have to talk to each other. And when she put out her guidance, she left that out. So we may be suing and doing this stuff, but this is, remember what I just said about her. She is the most anti-public education ideologue. So the first thing she does, Christine said it, schools are the center of community. The new law required people to work together and talk to each other, to have the collective wisdom of parents and of teachers at the table. I remember Lamar Alexander, when he was pushing the new law, said, this is the most important thing about the new law. And the new Secretary of Education, who says she is about helping parents, the first thing she does is take their voice away. That's number one. The second thing she does is exactly what she did in Michigan, which is, if you look at the new federal budget, If you look at it, there is a $9 billion cut to education. $9 billion. Now, the new federal budget doesn't reduce the deficit. It shifts a whole lot of money to militarization. How do they get that? $9 billion from education. Remember what I just said about Johnson. What does she take it out of? And I say she, for the following reasons. Don't just blame Trump. She is part of his administration. She went out the next day and said, oh, this budget is going to help children in underserved neighborhoods. So those of you who are from Binghamton, what does she take out of it? Every single after-school program, every single feeding program, every single program where we have wrapped services around schools to help create equity for children, to help create that ladder of opportunity. And what does she put in there instead? Because even though there's a $9 billion cut, there's a $1 billion increase. And what is that increase for? Vouchers and charters.
Disgusting.
And what did she do in Michigan? It was a 1-2. It was a take the money from the Detroit public schools, take them from other schools that were basically minority in and around Detroit, in and around Flint. By the way, she was also involved in the Flint water crisis, just FYI. Take the money away, destabilize public schools, defund them, destabilize, shift $1 billion to charters. And what happened in Michigan? By the way, no accountability in charters. And when I say she didn't have an elected role, but her lobbying was more important than anybody else's. Anyone's. I saw it firsthand when we had a Detroit rescue plan that even Mitt Romney's brother-in-law agreed to as the head of a commission. Mitt Romney's brother-in-law agreed to a Detroit Ed rescue plan that created more money for a new district, local control, and the mayor having citing authority over charters and public schools so that people like DeVos couldn't put 50 charters in the middle of downtown Detroit to siphon off money for all the other schools. Single-handedly, she defeated this rescue plan. And what did she want to take away more than anything else? The money for the new district and the mayor's accountability over charters. Single-handedly spending $1.4 billion. And what has she done to Michigan schools? They've gone from about 25th in reading down to about 41 in reading. About 26th in math, down to about 43 or 44. My point is this. She is as bad as you think she is. And the stuff that she is promoting has no evidence to back it up anymore. The new stuff on vouchers, because there's absolutely no accountability, it's not just church-state issues, it's not just draining public schools, but actually, if you look at Louisiana, Indiana, and Wisconsin, all the new research on vouchers shows that kids who are going to voucher schools are actually doing worse than what they did beforehand. Now, that was what I was supposed to talk about. This is what I want to say to you. In the last 2 months, in the last 6 weeks, I've been to a lot of places where people have voted for Donald Trump. Peoria, Illinois, West Virginia, Jacksonville, Florida, and upstate New York. And this is what I've seen. If we make the issues the way in which Christine talked about them, about what it is that families need, like why are we against the effects of deindustrialization, globalization, and frankly automation, which is going to be far worse than anything that has happened in terms of globalization? What is it that people want? They want a good job, with a living wage, with retirement security. They want decent health care. You just saw that in this debate about health care, with what Trump was trying to take away from people, and how people, even moderate Republicans, said, oh no, I can't vote for this. And all the work that Indivisible and everybody else did in terms of being we the people, like you do all the time. They want public schools, great neighborhood public schools we can send our kids to, and where kids are joyful and engaged, and teachers want to teach at. We need to fight for our democracy and for pluralism. And we need to fight against state administration. But if we have an agenda, we the people, you as progressives, that are about these things, people will be with us. I saw that in the fight against Betsy DeVos. I've never seen public education as visible or as vocal. I've never seen this many calls to the switchboard in the U.S. Senate. 5 million calls. Wow. I know all of you are good, but you can't make 5 million calls all around the country, rural, suburban areas. So I wanted to be here for this. There's a lot of things we have to fight against. We need to fight for the America that workers and parents, rural, suburban, urban, the America that we want is the America that I see people want all across the country. Just like Bernie pierced the frustration, we need to pierce the frustration that people feel, talk to people, talk about the issues, and have a plan that we are fighting for an America where working class can have the American dream, where an America where we can regain a middle class, where public education becomes that equalizer, but where there are policies for great American jobs, where we don't allow ICE to walk into our schools, but we fight for an America that protects the Statue of Liberty. We fight for America that people can walk on the streets. That's what we as progressives need to do. Not just talk to ourselves, as important as that is, because the solidarity we have here is really necessary in the fight against fascism. But to also, just like we did and are doing on the divorce battle, and just like we just did on the healthcare battle, to talk to people who want the same exact things as Christine just said. Thank you very, very much.